I have this with me. I've been bringing these with me.
Why are you eating the meat from here?
Well, because I was hungry and I had no other choice.
There's loads of choices here. There's plant-based food court.
Okay, I'll go to the plant-based food court. Okay, we'll go there together, all right?
I'm being serious here. If you're putting out a message where you're against factory farming and you're against intensive livestock farming and you're promoting regenerative meat, why on earth would you eat the commercially produced meat from this event?
Because I want to. It's good for me. My body wants meat. I'm finely tuned as a machine to consume animal protein and animal fat.
So you think you need animal protein for survival, right?
Yes.
What's that based on?
Klaus, really. It's based on 2 million years of evolution.
The largest dietetic associations in the world, the American Dietetic Association, the British Dietetic Association, the NHS, they all say, if well planned, a plant-based diet is nutritionally adequate and healthy for all stages of life.
Yeah, with all due respect, I completely disagree. From my point of view, you're demonstrating what's called confirmation bias. You're just citing the papers that confirm what you believe anyway. And I also think the science shows that, particularly with children now, with vegan parents, it's almost criminal.
The cameraman has been vegan since birth. I've been vegan for 12 years.
Okay, well.
So one of the questions we're asking people today is, how is regenerative meat justifiable from an environmental standpoint? But maybe we should take a step back and just talk about industrial livestock farming, and perhaps we can agree on a few points.
Partly why it's problematic is because all of agriculture has become industrialized and segmented. So now you have animal agriculture here and monocropping agriculture there, and that segmentation itself of separating animals from the land and from crops is deleterious. And so the animal agriculture is just part of the modern animal agriculture. It's just part of a whole system which itself is deleterious. So having large parts of middle America in soybeans, for example, is problematic, whether those soybeans are for animals or people.
Most are for animals though, right?
Yes, that's right. But saying, okay, well, in other words, the system itself is deleterious to soil. It should be a grassland. It should be prairie. And so animals have to be integrated into that system to restore the ecosystem, whether in fact they're eaten or whether they're eaten or not. And so we're in favor of a regenerative system of agriculture in which animals and crops can be sharing the same landscape in a way that's beneficial all around. Okay, so that's the context. I completely stand shoulder to shoulder with you in acknowledging that these concentrated animal feeding operations are unethical and environmentally deleterious. But I make the distinction between just 100% equating that with meat. There's many types of quote-unquote meat production which can be very helpful. And if you advocate for soil, like I do, a large part of the world, soil requires animal integration. So that's the nuance, if you will, that we try to make.
There was an interesting research paper in 2017 from the University of Oxford called Grazed and Confused. It showed that while certain grazing management systems can sequester carbon, this only amounts to around 20 to 60% of the emissions the animals produce in the first place. So how is this system sustainable?
Well, first of all, this system replicates. The whole point of this system is to replicate the type of herd behavior that created the grasslands in the first place. So it's important if you're studying animal agriculture that you make the distinction between a traditional system and a system which is actually replicating the animal movements which made grasslands in the first place, which sequestered hundreds of billions of tons of carbon were sequestered in grasslands over the evolution of grasslands and ecosystems. So it's important that you're looking at the right type, and that right type has to be expanded. Now, in regards to that particular study, that study was flawed. There were many papers that study did not include in its analysis, which were available at the time. For example, that paper came out in 2017, and it completely ignored Teague 2016. And there were other papers that the grazed and confused paper ignored. So I honestly think it was a flawed study, and had it been done properly, its conclusions would have been different.
Is extensive livestock farming, in the way you're talking about, is regenerative meat scalable?
Yes. Okay.
Because at the moment, 26% of the Earth's habitable land is for grazing. This only produces 1% of protein. So however you square it, if you're trying to get people to consume this regenerative meat, even if they swap just a few percent of their calories from intensive livestock farming produced meat to this, even if this is more sustainable, won't you just run out of land very quickly?
No. You see, this is the point that I'm trying to get to. We need to do this anyway is a climate solution. See, even if you didn't eat the meat, even if God or some, super alien came down and said to humans, look, don't worry about eating. Like literally just don't worry about eating, You don't need to eat, but you still need to solve the climate crisis. We still need to restore billions of hectares of land anyway.
And animals would be part of that.
Yeah,
so plant-based food system change advocates, they want to free up land, they want to rewild and replenish the land. According to the University of Oxford, in the largest study of its kind, the only way to meaningfully do that is to shift away from animal agriculture. Sure, animals are part of ecosystems that are diverse, but they're not part of a robust production system. There's an example in the UK called NEP, and it produces meat, it's regenerative, it is sustainable, but it produces such a small amount of meat. Unless we dramatically reduce the amount of meat we eat, this is just not a scalable, sustainable solution.
Yeah, well, you see, this is just where I disagree. Respectfully, you're sort of missing the point. This land has to be restored. Gabe has to expand. Will Harris's ranch has to expand. The whole thing with Alan Savory, with his property in Zimbabwe. I mean, I've been there like 10 times. It's incredible. You're driving along from the highway. It's just deserted land, and then you get to his property and bang. The studies are coming out all of the time. I mean, almost every week there's another study, and there's going to be more and more and more. It's just, this is the future. Livestock.
According to Nature Journal, a couple of weeks ago, just before this event, it showed that regenerative meat is not sustainable because the animals emit double the amount of emissions to what the land can sequester in the first place.
I know about that study, but I haven't looked at under the hood. But I've been in this game long enough to know that typically when that happens, okay, there's something that they're overlooking. I mean, so I don't want to comment specifically on it because I haven't looked at it, but I will. It's on my short list of things to do. But typically when this happens, when you look under the hood and look at the details, you realize, oh, they forgot to account for this. They forgot to account for that. They're using a system which itself isn't truly regenerative. So from my point of view, there's just no way around it. We have to restore the land.
I know we have to restore the land. That's not the debate. It's how we do that.
Yeah.
Plant-based food system change advocates just say, leave the land alone. What is wrong with that? And also, let me ask you something that keeps coming back to the scalability of this industry that you're talking about. Animal agriculture currently, in its intensified form, requires 83% of farmland, but only provides 18% of calories. As I said, grazing takes up 26% of the Earth's habitable land, and most of the meat, as you know, that's consumed around the world is factory farmed. Over 90% in the US, over 85% in the UK. So how will there be enough land? You still haven't answered that question, unless you say we need to dramatically reduce the amount of meat we consume.
I think that the meat production can continue at approximate the same levels at any rate on the land that's there, but not in a factory farm situation, in a pastured.
Which takes up more land.
Yes, it takes up more land, but it's restoring the land. So the fact that it's taking it up isn't a problem.
Not as much as just leaving it alone.
No, but you see, the land is already depleted. In other words, most of Middle America is a desert at this point. There's almost no soil carbon left at all. I mean, this is land that literally, the topsoil used to be this deep, and with soil organic matters near 7-8%. Now it's literally inches on top, and the soil organic matter is like 1% or less. I mean, it's literally a desert. If it weren't for fertilizers, there would be no production at all. So it's entirely at this point dependent on fertilizers, and then the big ag, they're just trying to make more drought-tolerant seeds and more responsive seeds. They just want to stay in the monoculture grain paradigm, if you will.
Which is wrong. We can agree on that.
Right. Of course that's wrong. So then the question is, you're saying, well, why can't you just naturally restore the land? I'm saying the land is already so dead. To restore it, you do need animals. You need to bring the animals back.
But not an animal production system. You need animals, but not in the context of a production system.
All right. So then the sort of the rewilding talking point. I mean, if you want to rewild literally, 50% of the landed surface of, North America, I mean, sure, go for it. I mean, there were 70 million bison, there were tens of millions of antelope, 30 million wolves, nearly 1 billion prairie dogs. I mean, I could see that there are these sort of rewilded areas and rewilding corridors.
You think that's good?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can certainly see that happening. But the irony is that the domestic animals managed properly is in fact how you could sort of jumpstart the rewilding. And in fact, that's exactly what's happening. So on Will Harris's ranch in Bluffton, Georgia, they are rewilding. In other words, when you bring back healthy grass, and you have pastured chickens, well, guess what? You're going to get predator birds. And so now you're getting eagles. And, it's the same thing at Allen's property in Zimbabwe. When you bring back all the healthy grass, well, guess what? That's where the giraffes are going, and that's where the zebra are going, and that's where the elephants are going. They're going to his property because it was restored with livestock managed holistically. Meanwhile, literally 20 kilometers away at the Victoria Falls National Park, there's nothing. There's no elephants or giraffe or zebra. There's no predators. The land is completely eroding. And this is at the national park. So you see, it's not one or the other. When you manage livestock properly, you can create a healthy ecosystem which will basically sort of on its own rewild. And I can see...
But that doesn't produce much meat, though. How much meat does that produce? I read a paper that showed that if the US started just eating grass-fed meat, that country would require 2.5 times more land. So unless we dramatically reduce the amount of meat we consume, there's no way of squaring it.
We sourced meat. Now, if you want to say something like, okay, I'll cut back on meat, but when I buy it, I'll really advocate. I'll make sure I'm getting regeneratively sourced meat. I mean, if that wants to be your message, that's fine. But one way or another,
it should be your message at the very least. If you're going to promote regenerative meat, at least tell it like it is. Say the only way this is going to be viable is if we reduce the amount of meat we consume.
But you see, I'm not going to say that because I don't completely believe it. The fact is...
What's that based on?
Well, because I can get online right now and I can order steaks from this company and Blue Nest beef and Understanding Ag. There's a whole bunch of Epic Provisions. There's a whole bunch of providers right now.
I know we're tight on time.
Yeah.
You said you eat the meat here at COP, which is commercially produced, because you want to.
My intuition said I'm better off having this animal product. I know it's not a regeneratively sourced product. I hope that someday at these events there will be pavilions like that where you can, and I guess if you want to say, well, I'm hypocritical at that particular moment, well, okay. I mean, if that's what you're trying to get me to say.
I'm not obsessed with calling out for being a hypocrite. I just think that it's a microcosm of a wider picture where people hold up regenerative beef and regenerative meat, and then they go back home, they go to the supermarket, and they don't even buy it. And it stinks of hypocrisy.
Sure, you're right. That would be hypocrisy. Okay, wouldn't it be easier to ameliorate the hypocrisy if there was more regenerative meat?
If it worked and it was scalable.
Okay, well, let's find out. Okay.
Now, last question.
Yeah.
What's your moral justification for consuming meat? We've talked about how we disagree on the sustainability front.
Yeah.
How do you morally justify consuming animal products?
Well, I mean, it's the trajectory of evolution. I mean, that's why we're human.
What would you rather do? Intentionally kill an animal, a human, or neither?
You make these questions up on the spot, or you already have them like preloaded?
I asked a couple people that yesterday.
Okay. I know I need to eat meat. I need animal protein and animal fat. My body tells me that. I'm finely tuned as a machine to consume animal products, and so someone has to do the killing, either the producer, or me. In a modern society, the producer does it, so I don't have to. But I would be happy to go hunting for food that we were going to eat, not for trophy hunting.
So you think you need animal protein for survival, right?
Yes.
What's that based on?
Klaus, really. I mean, it's based on 2 million years of evolution. All right.
Well, my understanding of it was we started consuming animal products 1 million or 2 years ago, but it was because of food scarcity issues. So we ate meat to begin with out of necessity. But now, in this day and age, in the 21st century, the largest dietetic associations in the world, the American Dietetic Association, the British Dietetic Association, the NHS, they all say, if well planned, a plant-based diet is nutritionally adequate and healthy for all stages of life. So we have a choice to stop filtering our nutrients through an animal. And I think with that choice, I choose to make a different decision to you.
Yeah, with all due respect, I completely disagree.
How?
An animal-based plant-based protein is not the same as animal-based protein, and in fact, many more studies are coming out on this. I mean, from my point of view, you're demonstrating what's called confirmation bias. You're just citing the papers that confirm what you believe anyway, and I assure you, now the nutrition isn't the area that I'm facile in citation in, but I assure you there are dozens of papers which make it perfectly clear that animal source protein and particularly animal fats are much better for you. And I also think the science shows that particularly with children now, with vegan parents, it's almost criminal what they're doing to children.
The cameraman has been vegan since birth. I've been vegan for 12 years.
Okay, well, I would much rather have this debate with you than just, be with the average person who doesn't know or care. Okay, you care, and that's what matters. And you know that I care.
I agree.
Okay? And I believe that people who care will wrestle with topics that are bigger than they are, and by doing so respectfully, the whole system itself will move forward.